Hello everyone, my name is Alexis Lett, and of course this is Social Work 501, where I will begin my presentation on older adult oral video. Hello everyone, my name is Alexis Lett, and of course this is Social Work 501, where I will begin my presentation on the older adult oral video. I first want to introduce or give a little information about my interviewee. She is my coworker who is 65 years old. She is a mother of two girls, 24 and 31. She is divorced. She has an extensive background of different career opportunities and experience. She's very transparent, upfront. She has a lot of wisdom and very intelligent, both socially and professionally. She has a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight. So I figured she would be the best pick for this presentation. When I discussed a little bit about her past and was able to ask a few questions and get a few responses, I felt that Eric's stage 6, intimacy versus isolation, focusing on young adulthood around ages 18 to 40, was the best stage to discuss. It seems to be the basis for who she is today. In our book, it does state young adults are looking for intimacy and closeness in their relationships. They learn to give and take with a significant other without sacrificing their identities. If they are unable to establish intimacy, they are at risk for isolation as they move into adulthood. Social norms and expectations about the developmental processes that should occur at various ages are always changing. You can see an example of this in the traditional activities of marriage and having children, which seem to characterize Erikson's stages of intimacy versus isolation. Because of economic conditions, technological advances, expanding employment opportunities for women, and changing attitudes about marriage, many young people may put these activities off until later years. Similarly, people may find alternative ways to achieve intimacy that do not include traditionally accepted activities. When I asked the interviewee some of her important experiences, I also asked for her to explain why these events were important. Her first experience that was extremely important to her was being crowned homecoming queen her senior year, when she was 18 years old. She stated that she was very happy and proud of herself because at that time they were ending segregation and getting used to integration. So she felt like it was an honor that she was nominated and actually won this position based off of majority vote of her peers. She was extremely excited about that. Later on, after graduation, she was selected amongst other girls to model in Europe. The significance about this event was that she sent herself financially. She worked and raised enough money to go on this trip by herself. She didn't have a lot of backing or support from her mother and stepfather, which were the two individuals that were raising her at the time. And she felt like she would have liked for them to be more supportive. However, she felt like this was a once in a lifetime experience, and she definitely took advantage of it. She also funded herself throughout college. She worked different jobs, paid for all her basic needs, and once again didn't have a lot of support from her mother and stepmother, who were in North Carolina, where she went to college in Tennessee. However, she did obtain her bachelor's degree in drama. So as I stated, she has experience in a lot of different areas. She traveled the world as she was raised in North Carolina, went to college in Tennessee, was later married and moved to Dallas, Texas. After their divorce or separation, she moved to Sacramento, California. And then after that, she relocated back to North Carolina. So she's been all over the world, met different people, worked in different positions. She was also able to work as a marketing representative where she sold advertising on the radio in Sherman, Texas for 11 years. That allowed her to meet different people in different positions. And she stated that she thought that it was because of her bubbly personality and boldness, and also because she has a very raspy voice, that she was able to have that opportunity. Um, as I stated, she's had experience in a lot of different areas, not just being a marketing representative, but also being a salesman, selling, doing real estate. She worked in the education system for about 15 years, and now, as I stated, she's transitioning to social work or working in social service for the last 5 years. Also, one of the most important things that she discussed was being a mother. Being a mother allowed her to realize her purpose, to really have someone else that was watching her, that she can be an example to, which gave her great pride. So this was, another important experience that seemed to top them all. Now when we go to discuss the different challenges that she faced, as I discussed, she had to fund her trip to Europe, where she modeled, and also college tuition and a lot of what she needed to live on a day-to-day basis. She didn't have much support from her family, which she stated made her feel lonely. Although she was very popular and used to laugh a lot and make others laugh, she used to mask her pain. She was very sad and felt very lonely because her family was not as supportive as she would hope for them to be. She stated that she had difficulty with decision making, because she didn't have those wise ears to hear some of her plans. She kind of winged a lot of things where she would have wished for both her mother and stepfather, and even her father that was in Tennessee, to kind of give her some guidance. She had an unsuccessful marriage later in her late around her 30s, where her husband was involved in some substance abuse, and um, that was difficult for her. Also included her and her daughter at the time, her one daughter that she had at the time, to have to relocate from different states, which caused some difficulty. She had to, of course, find new employment and of everything else that comes along with that. Later after that, she had a few unhealthy relationships, um, which caused her to feel stagnant in her position in life. She wasn't as confident. Her accomplishments consist of graduating college, modeling, being active in the drama department, which was a great experience. She stated she was able to meet Oprah at Tennessee State, and that she became close friends with her. However, they both made, of course, separate choices. So what worked out for Oprah didn't work out for her. She also said that it's still an accomplishment that she's been a great mother. The psychological issue or psychosocial crisis resolution that I decided to discuss was isolation. Isolation is described when avoiding intimacy, fearing commitment, and relationships can lead to isolation, loneliness, and sometimes depression. Um, in this situation, the interviewee felt like she was lacking family support. She had issues with both her step parents, not only her step parent, her stepfather in North Carolina, but when she was in college, she lived in Tennessee where her father and stepmother lived. And she attempted to live with them and even needed her father to take her back and forth to classes. However, she felt very uncomfortable and felt like she was more of a burden than welcomed. And that kind of made her isolate herself from family. She just went to take care of herself, basically, in Tennessee. And that relationship was never severed with her father, her birth father. Also, there was a disconnection with her stepfather, where that was never mended also. Um, she had an identity crisis, and this caused an identity crisis because she just wasn't accepted by the people that she felt like she should be accepted by. She not being able to return home during college when she was away in Tennessee because her stepfather and her never got along, never saw eye to eye. He was never supportive of the things she did. Also because in the household, she was the only stepchild. The other three children were his birth children, so they were treated differently. So she never liked to come home during her breaks for college. She just isolated herself, decided to do things with other family and with friends. Um, Accomplishing goals with no financial help. She did state that she wished that she had more backing from her mother and stepfather, and her father and stepmother, but she did a lot on her own, which caused her to be independent. When discussing psychosocial factors or events, diversity and difference, some of the key points I discussed with the interviewee was her having a dysfunctional family where alcohol and abuse was present. With her stepfather, he was very controlling, temperamental. He was a veteran, so a lot of his behaviors were not positive in the household, which kind of made her isolate herself more from her family, making her stay away during those college holidays. And even after she graduated college, she never returned back home. She grew up when integration was finally being implemented. So, this was something that was definitely diversity, and difference, showing difference. She was living with a controlling stepfather, as I discussed. She was very close with her mother, very independent compared to peers and siblings. She had a religious mother. They would regularly go to church, which kind of conflicted with a lot of things that were going on in the home, which brought about confusion. She was close with her younger sister that was later on drugs around the same time frame that she was moving away from the house or from the home. And then her latter years, between her ages 30 and 40, she did assist her sister in trying to get clean and different things. She was very sad inside, although she was outgoing externally, which I discussed before. When identifying oppression with my interviewee, she stated that she really didn't feel like she was um, oppressed around that time frame, not for the majority of that time frame. However, she did experience um, some oppression or kind of being isolated, especially when being considered the stepchild, as I mentioned before. The men in the home were seen as dominant, so she was more muffled and not really treated the same, which is similar to gender roles were limited. There were certain things that she was expected to do and certain things that she was not expected to do. Cultural discrimination. This was something that was very important to her because she was more fair-skinned than everyone else in her family. And also she received a lot of backlash for that. At school, she wasn't necessarily accepted as being an African American woman. Um, so that definitely made her have an identity crisis, like really questioning herself about who she was. And she stated that she was underestimated in her career as a car salesman. She wasn't treated the same and wasn't really put on the same scale as the men were. But other than that, she didn't express too many times where she felt she was oppressed.